Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I feel like it's been so long since I recorded a podcast episode. I was just looking back at my most recent one. That one I released on Christmas Eve. And then I basically took a 2 week break because, as some of you might know, I went on a 2 week holiday for Christmas and New Year's to Spain. I went to the beautiful Canary Islands, the island of Tenerife. And I basically spent exactly 2 weeks there. It was such an incredible time. I learned a lot about myself during the 2 weeks off and also just fully immersed myself in nature. The island completely blew me away. I didn't actually expect how nice Tenerife actually is. I think because it has a bit of a weird reputation, like it's a very nice island, but in certain parts of the island, if you don't have a car and you stay where you book your Airbnb or hotel, it can actually not really be the best time. But because we rented a car for the 2 weeks, we got to explore different parts of the island. And it's incredible because you can drive 30 minutes down to the beach. The weather was perfect. Sunny days, beach days, got it very nice tan. And so you can drive 30 minutes to go to the beach. And then you can also drive an hour the opposite way and go up to this beautiful mountain called Mount Tade. I don't know. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right to this day, but you can drive an hour up to the mountain and see the third largest volcano in the world, which is absolutely incredible. The temperature change is drastic, like from 25-degree weather down to the beach. Up in the mountain, it's like 12 degrees Celsius, which is super cold. One night, I booked an Airbnb experience and we went to go see planets and stars through a telescope. And that was so interesting. I had booked through an Airbnb experience with an astrophysicist. So he actually studies the stars, the galaxy, the planets, and then he had this huge telescope at the top of the mountain. It was like freezing cold that night. Obviously, he warned us and made sure that we wore enough clothes, winter clothes for the experience, but it was really cool because I got to see Saturn. We learned a lot about the stars, how old they are, how some stars are dying, newer stars. We looked at different galaxies, different planets. Besides Saturn, we saw Mars, we looked at Jupiter, which is really cool, but definitely the one that was like, I significantly remember how cool it looked was Saturn. Yeah, so that was a really interesting experience. And then, yeah, we basically, what else did I do that these 2 weeks? Went to this famous water park. I think it's voted the number one water park in Europe, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it is. Or in the world. I don't know, something like that. I should probably fact check that, but it's called Siam Park. It is Thailand themed, and I believe like it's it's Thailand themed for sure, and owned by a Thai family. And so that water park was so much fun. All these crazy rides, low key scary, but the best time. You go on like tubes, there's like water slides. It's not just like floating, but you're like literally going on rides with the tubes. So that was really fun. And then we ate a lot of Spanish food, absolutely delicious. Had a lot of paella, which was delicious. If you guys know my journey from like TSW and ever since I was young, I've always had a problem with shellfish for some reason. And so being able to eat king prawns and mussels and clams and squid and shrimp was just really nice to not have to worry about my skin. So that was very tasty. A lot of beach days, a lot of driving around. We visited some really cute towns on the island. So when you rent a car, you can actually drive from one end of the island to the other end in like an hour. And so the area that I was staying at is called Adeje. It's like the nicer part of the southern part of the island. We drove up to the northern part of the island and we went to this little town called San Cristobal. Super cute, very Hispanic, very Spanish. All the like different colors of the buildings. We saw like churches and we took like nice pictures. Cute little alleyways with the landscape in the background was like so pretty. So Tenerife is like known for the volcano, third largest volcano in the world, beautiful beaches, and the volcanic structure of how the island was formed. So the island, I actually did a little bit of research about this because I thought it was so interesting to see like all these like rock formations on the entire island. And it's because the island was formed by volcanoes millions or billions of years ago. And so when you actually drive around the island, you'll see these like large volcanic structures, and you can actually see something called striations. By the way, I used to I did like a course back in high school on geography, and I'm really fascinated by like natural formations, I guess is the word. So anyways, so like striations are basically these like lines that you see in rocks. Maybe like you've seen them on like volcanoes, just rocks on the beach or something, and you see like these lines that kind of go through them. So on Tenerife, all of the volcanic formations have these striations on them, and they're just basically these like lines, these horizontal lines that go through the rocks. And it's basically through millions, thousands of millions of years of weather erosion. So whether that's like the rain or the wind erodes these rocks, and it creates these really beautiful looking lines. So when you drive around the island, you can actually see the different sized rocks with striations within them. Anyways, and it's really beautiful because you can see these rock formations that itself is already really pretty, but because there's basically no cloud coverage in Tenerife, which is why stargazing is huge there, because you can actually see so many stars in the sky. It's crazy. But during the day, the sky is so clear. So you have these like beautiful rock formations, and in the back, clear blue skies. Basically super picturesque. Loved it. Love everything about nature. Highly recommend for those of you who like going to the beach, but also love going up to the mountains and have it within driving distance. Though I will say, driving up from the beach, from the bottom of the mountain, volcano, sorry, to the top is like a very scary drive. If you guys check out my Instagram post, I have a video of us driving through the mountain, and it's definitely not safe. Hairpin turns. Spanish drivers drive aggressively and very fast. So it's like already a lot of pressure as like someone who's renting a car on the island. And yeah, it's just like a very difficult drive from the bottom of the mountain to the top. Okay, let's get into today's episode. There are some things that I learned in the 2 weeks that I was off in Spain that I want to share as well, but I actually took a bunch of notes for today's episode because today's episode is about a year in review of 2024. I'm already sweating because it's hot. A year in review of 2024. What exactly happened in 2024 in terms of my work, my relationships, how I was feeling. A lot of you have sent me DMs and personally messaged me, and my clients as well, letting me know that you guys appreciate it so much that I share more of the vulnerable side of things and what actually has happened beyond what you just see on social media, because social media is always a highlight reel. Like everyone's always talking about how amazing they're doing or like how much money they're making or whatever, but no one really talks about the behind the scenes of like what it's really like to, be a business owner or have chronic health issues like eczema or what they've been going through with their mental health and their relationship. So I thought this would be a good episode to just share about my year in review in 2024 and what I'm expecting this year in 2025. Okay. I anticipate this is going to be a rather long episode, or than my usual episodes. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea. If you're driving, save this episode for a longer drive, and let's get into it. Okay, so I actually categorize my year in review in quarters. So in business, actually, this is what we do. We do Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So Q1, quarter one, is from January to March. Q2 is April to June. Q3 is July to September. And then Q4, which just ended, was September to December. So let's talk about January to March of 2024. Okay. Okay, where should we start? So if I'm looking away from the camera, it's because I don't want to miss anything. And I took a lot of notes. So I just want to make sure that I mention everything I need to mention. From January to March, these were the months when I was traveling or living in Southeast Asia. So I had just arrived to Thailand in November of 2023, and then January to March, I didn't move. I stayed in Chiang Mai, Thailand. January and March was actually probably one of the most challenging months of the year. I mean, can't really say that because there's also like, we'll get into it, but summer is really hard for me. And then things started to get better after summer. But I would say January to March is like where all of my emotions and how I was feeling about myself and my business started to come up in this quarter. So, January, for those of you who came to my masterclass, I actually launched a masterclass in January. And just for context, when I'm trying to enroll people into my program, I usually do like a free training. And then in the free training, I talk about how to heal your skin or whatever the topic it is. And then at the end, I always offer like a promo to work with me or open up spots to join me inside my programs. Every single year, I've always launched a masterclass and my program, my signature program, Clear Eczema, in January. So I did it in January 2024, January 2023, I'm pretty sure January 2022 and 2021. So I've done a masterclass launch every January because January is basically a time where people want to start their health journey. They want to start healing their eczema, right? It's like a new year and they want to get started. So in 2024, I launched the masterclass in CYE. And for the first time that I've launched my program, and I've launched my program many, many times. I used to do a lot more back then when launching was more like a thing back in the COVID times. I would always do really well with my master classes, lots of signups, lots of applications, lots of enrollments. And it was the first time ever that I launched CYE in January 2024, hoping that it would do really well because I have been working on the masterclass and updating CYE for the past few years now, but it actually flopped. I'm still nervous about like sharing this because I don't know, I just like don't like to share. I don't really feel comfortable sometimes and I feel like anxious sharing about things that hasn't worked out for me in terms of like my life, but I mean, we're in the new era now where we're sharing these side of things. So, I launched CYE in January 2024, hoping it would do well, and it flopped basically. I anticipated January to be a good month because historically speaking, if I'm looking at my statistics for every January, like January is a great month. But I actually hit an all-time low with my business and I didn't enroll as many clients as I wanted to for the launch, considering how much work that I put into launching CYE. And that month was really hard for me because I didn't expect it at all. And I don't know if you guys can relate, but when you just like believe in yourself so much and you put in so much work when it comes to your business, or when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to your work, your school, or whatever it is, and you do everything you can because you obviously care about succeeding and doing well, and then the complete opposite happens, it's quite like traumatic because you just feel like your efforts aren't working. And so, or didn't work. And so, in that month, when I tried to launch something, it didn't work out. I was like very frustrated at myself and overwhelmed. And I just felt like I was failing at my business because I'm very fortunate to have built a very fruitful business the past few years. And for me, because I'm such a overachiever and I expect myself to do better every single year, it just threw me for a loop to see that I actually did very horrible that month in terms of business revenue is what I'm referring to. So that really made me not feel so good about myself and my business. And on top of that, being in Asia, I was away from my friends. All my friends are either back home in Vancouver or they live in Colombia. And I just felt like very alone. And owning a business as a entrepreneur, like a small business, it's a very isolating journey. If you're a one-man show, you're doing everything yourself. You're creating the content, you're seeing your clients, you're doing the admin, you're managing your systems, you're trying to engage. There's just always so many things you have to do. And so oftentimes, you just feel you don't really know what you're doing because you're just doing it by yourself, right? So it gets really overwhelming sometimes. And during that time, I felt very isolated because I was not only trying to do everything and make sure that my business isn't failing, at the same time, I like didn't really have anyone to talk to because yeah, business is just a very lonely journey. And in Asia, I didn't really know anybody. I met a couple people. I did a lot of networking actually in January, February, and March, but none of those relationships that I met during that time, like nothing really stuck. I don't know why, but actually, I made one friend and I'm still friends with her to this day. She actually has a business and love her. But it took like getting myself out there, meeting hundreds of people to meet one friend. So like when you're traveling all the time, it's just hard to have long lasting relationships. And that's so important, right? When it comes to your life, like you need to have good relationships. Not everyone agrees to that, but I think that, having a good circle of close friends that are supportive is important. But I didn't have that at that time. So, it was really hard for me to launch something, have it flop, and then just felt all sorts of emotions. Like, didn't feel like it was enough, didn't feel like I was going to be successful anymore, felt like I was just not okay. And instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing that time, which is probably seek emotional support or like do therapy or, invest into my business, but I couldn't at the time because I was in this like scarcity mindset that like I can't invest in my business if I'm not making money to invest in my business. And the thing with business coaching, some of you who might not know this, it's not particularly cheap to invest in a business coach. They're at least 4 to 5 figure investment, especially if you want someone who is experienced, who have been around in the industry for a while. So they're not particularly cheap. And I was obviously in a scarcity mindset. So I was like, I'm just gonna like save my money, live in Asia, and just like ride things out and see how things went. But obviously that didn't work out. So, anyways, from January to March, instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing, which is seek help, I try to go on these like mini trips to make myself feel better. I kept going on little mini trips around Thailand to try and like get my mind off of my business, to try not to be affected by my business. And then not only this, I was also putting on a mask in a way because I obviously didn't want people to know that I wasn't doing well in terms of my business, right? That's the last thing I want people to know because I had this fear that if people knew that I wasn't doing well, they wouldn't work with me. And even sharing this now, it makes me nervous because I'm like, okay, maybe people don't want to work with me because I'm actually not like last year I wasn't doing well. And people could feel energy off of you, right? And so I put on a mask so that people didn't know that I was actually struggling behind my business because I didn't want people to know I was scared. I thought that would actually be better for me because people would want to work with me knowing that I'm doing well. But obviously that backfired because people can feel your energy, right? They know when something's off. They know that you're not being yourself. And so even though I tried to put on a mask so that people wouldn't know what was going through, subconsciously, I was not attracting any clients because I wasn't being me, right? And so these are the things I like learned later on the year, now into 2025. And so what I did to help me during that time was to actually do more. So I started to pump out content like 3 times a day to see if it would attract more clients, if it would help me more. I was working like 12 hours a day. I would wake up 7 a.m., work, go to the gym, and then work till late. And it was just like pumping out content, creating all these things. But then behind the scenes, I was crying every day. I was pretending everything was okay, but deep down, I was like fucking so sad. I was like, no one cares my content. It's not hitting. I'm getting low views. And it's just been so hard for me to grow on social media just by posting fucking like crazy. That was basically January to March, just trying to do more because I thought I needed to do more in order to get more clients, in order to, see some momentum in my business. That didn't do anything basically. Like January to March was like the slowest I've ever been in terms of my business. And I couldn't accept that because I'm so used to being busy all the time. And it really taught me that being busy doesn't mean that I'm successful. Being busy doesn't equal success. And that's something that I've learned in my lesson of last year. Okay, January to March, that was Q1. Besides the fact that, okay, I wrote here, cried many times, but pretended it was all okay. And I had a literal meltdown during that time to my now boyfriend. I remember that actually. Lots of meltdowns during that time. Okay, so then April to June, this is Q2. I was like, you know what? I'm sick of myself and things not moving the direction that I wanted to move. So I invested into business mentorship this month in April. And then I started to slowly see momentum. What do you know? Every time you invest in yourself, even when you fucking feel like you have no money, when you feel like you don't know if it's gonna work out, you do it anyways. It always, always, always gives you an ROI, return on investment, whether it's financial gain, health gain, whatever it is, there's always a benefit and an improvement in the thing that you're trying to work on. So I saw a little bit of momentum coming into April. And, that being said, even though I was seeing momentum, those feelings of not enough, feeling like I wasn't doing anything for social media was still there, right? Because I realized that I held on to a lot of like the stress from Q1, right? It's still there. And so during this time, I started to develop more feelings of what is my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be doing eczema coaching? But then I felt somewhere in my gut, in my intuition, that maybe that's not something that I should be doing for the rest of my life. Even though when I started my business back in 2020, I was like, for sure, we're going to be coaching eczema forever. But I'm noticing that I'm like not resonating with my content anymore. How many times do I have to post my TSW journey, rinse it 1,000 times for me to be like, I'm sick of just hearing my own journey? There's people struggling, but if I keep posting my story, people just aren't going to resonate anymore. From doing business mentorship this month, I learned that I no longer should be focusing just on eczema, and I should be shifting my practice to general inflammation. And right now, as of today, January 14th, I feel so much better not talking about eczema all the time. And I'm not saying that I don't care and I won't ever help people with eczema. All of my clients right now, they have eczema, but they also have so many other issues because eczema is not just a skin condition, right? It's linked to your gut, it's linked to your mindset, it's linked to your hormones. I am still seeing clients with eczema, but what I realized in this quarter of last year to expand my practice and help people outside of just eczema. Plus, social media nowadays, everybody is a health coach, everybody is a eczema coach, everybody is a spiritual coach, So it's everyone just has a title now. And so I wanted to broaden my practice and be able to see people outside of eczema. And then I actually started to attract clients who follow me and they thought they couldn't work with me because they thought I only do eczema. I started to see more clients who had so many other issues. And I felt so inspired to be able to help people during that time who had burnout from stress, who had fatigue, general symptoms, who had gut issues, who had adrenal fatigue, just trying to think of some cases. And to be able to help them heal their symptoms beyond eczema was just something that I now love to do. And so during Q2, I learned that about myself. I was like, okay, it's time to shift my practice away from eczema and start doing general inflammation. And then I started to feel more inspired with my content. I don't feel like I'm just repeating the same things over and over and over again with eczema. I have so many other things I can talk about. I started posting content about adrenal fatigue. How do you develop that? Posting content about PMS, how that's not a normal thing that women should experience, and how birth control affects your gut. So topics outside of eczema is what I started to focus on, and I really enjoy doing it. And then leading up to May, I hit my biggest month in May. So I had a very slow and low time from January to April. And then when I started to feel a little bit better about my business and my content, and I hit a really good month in May. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful to have invested back into myself during that time and saw the benefits as a result of that. From January to May, during this time of everything that was happening, I was in Thailand, then I went to Vietnam, and then I did a 2-week trip to Japan. Love Japan. And then in June, I returned back to Canada. My best friend at that time, she was getting married. So she had her wedding in August last year in Vancouver. I went back to Canada for the summer. I helped her out because I was one of the bridesmaids. So a lot of things were going on during the summertime in terms of planning her wedding, her bachelorette. And then all of that, while that was happening, my parents decided to sell their home that we lived in since we were babies, which was a huge thing. In Asian culture, for those of you who are Asian or who aren't Asian, when it comes to selling houses and when it comes to change, it's very difficult for our generation parents. My parents, the house is so bad for them. They should have left that house so many years ago. The energy is horrible. There's been a lot of stress and trauma in that house growing up. The house is super old, and my parents aren't the best when it comes to upkeep. They should have got rid of the house a long time ago. But anyways, selling this house in summer was a very difficult decision for my parents, even though it was about time, overdue time. Change for them was very hard. So they were very stressed out about the move. My parents, they just have very strong personalities, and it was just very stressful time to move from living in a house for 30 years into a completely new place, much nicer place. So anyways, so during that time when I went back to Canada, bachelorette, seeing my friends again after not seeing them for over a year, my parents moving, helping them move. And then this is kind of a crazy story, but the moment that I landed in Canada, I kid you not, you guys, my skin went into allergic reaction. Prior to that, my skin was completely clear. Yes, maybe a couple like dry patches here and there, but I didn't have any problems when I was living in Asia for 6 months. Prior to that, I was in Europe, basically different countries all over the world, a year and a half before coming back home to Canada. The moment that I landed in Canada, I got hives. I was like, there's something in the air because there's nothing else that would have changed. I was feeling fine. And so I was like, you know what? This flare is going to go away. But it didn't. It actually got worse. And it makes sense because I'm not going to dive into this because it's going to be a separate podcast episode. The food quality in Canada, the environment, what they're putting into the food, something's in the air. And then in combination with that, with all the stress with my parents and having to live with them temporarily because I was only there for a couple months. That was a very crazy month for me in June. In June, that was actually the time that I decided to invest in therapy. I've already done a little bit of therapy in the past, but because of my scarcity mindset, the first quarter of the year, I was so scared to put any more money towards myself, which makes sense at that time because you're like, I need to save my money right now because I'm not making any. But honestly, I wish I did a little bit earlier. And then now I've been doing regular therapy every 2 weeks and seeing my amazing therapist that has helped me so much with all of my stress around my business and how I was feeling about myself throughout the entire year. June was when I started to see her. That's basically Q2. Things started to improve a little bit in terms of my business, but obviously still has a lot to work on in terms of my stress and my honestly trauma from my business itself, but also my childhood too, which is actually the reason why I started to experience all these feelings in these quarters. So I'll talk about that a little bit later, but basically that was Q2. Moving on to Q3. So Q3 is now July to September. So basically I was in Canada from June to August. And so July and August were very busy months for me. The wedding was in August, and obviously I was still helping my parents move. And unfortunately, because of all the stress and being in Canada and the environment and the food, I probably went through one of the biggest flares I've ever had in a long time. Nothing like how it was years and years ago, but because my skin has been so clear for almost 2 years, that kind of flare was pretty intense for me. And so I had to go back to doing weekly acupuncture. So if you guys know from my journey, I healed a lot of my eczema and my TSW from seeing my traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. Her name is Lisa. I started doing weekly acupuncture back in Canada. It was just a lot during that time. I was already feeling so shitty about my business. I was nowhere near my goals. I wanted to continue my business, growing it, hitting six figures every year, I was nowhere close to that. And I started to feel really nervous about where my business was heading. And I really honestly felt like such a failure because I worked so hard and it just wasn't producing the results that I was expecting. And we'll talk about a little bit more about how I associate my self worth with how much money I make, which is such a frightening thing for me to share because yeah, it's just kind of like that vulnerable side of me, I guess, that I'm sharing now on my podcast. But I'm healing from that now because it's stupid to basically think that your self-worth is based on how successful you look, which I talked about in my previous episodes. But anyways, during this time I was still going through those feelings because there was so much going on in my life. I started to feel like I couldn't hold space for my clients anymore. But because I'm obviously someone that has to hold space for my clients because that's what I do for my work, right? Hold space for people to help them with their eczema journey, with their healing journey. And so when I started to feel like I couldn't show up, it was just very hard for me. I would bawl my eyes out before hosting my CYE group calls. I would cry before my one-on-one sessions, but like obviously I didn't want to cancel my clients, and unfortunately I had to reschedule so many of my calls inside CYE because I was either not feeling well or I would try to mask how I was doing by taking extra time off to go like hang out with my friends and travel and stuff like that. It was reflecting into my business because of how I was feeling with everything that was going on. During this time in Q3, I actually had to go through probably the most difficult client complaint that still affects my mental health to this day. However, I've healed a lot from it. I feel a lot better than I did back then, but I had to handle a difficult client complaint and have a very difficult conversation, which I now see why. It's because I wasn't feeling good about myself, but there's also other things that didn't make sense from her end as well as the client. We just weren't aligning in terms of her expectations, and so there was just a clash. I had to let her go as a client, offered a refund, and that was really hard for me because I care a lot about my clients. I care a lot about people having the best experience working with me, but because there was just so much going on in the summertime, we had to just end our relationship because it just wasn't working out for me and it wasn't working out for her. But anyways, that was a very hard time and I'm consistently working on myself to this day. It's so important because when you put back into yourself, this is where you're going to see growth and see healing. And I'm noticing it so much now in my business and myself when I started to do more of that internal work that I've done a little bit in the past, but never to this extent. I decided to move to Colombia during Q3 and packed all my things, donated away bags and bags and bags of clothes and belongings while my parents were moving, packed all my things and moved down to Colombia where my best friend lives. And now we live together. And it's the best decision that I made for myself because I could see how I was feeling being back in Canada and just not feeling good. Vancouver's always been a place for me where beautiful city, nothing to complain in terms of the nature, but my health never seems to be good when I'm in Vancouver. It's expensive and Canada is just not the place that I want to be, and I don't thrive in Canada anyways. So decided to leave Canada and I felt the best I ever felt since leaving Canada. I sold my car that I worked really hard to pay off and yeah, just basically just started a new chapter in this beautiful country that I live in now. When I came to Colombia, my skin was still flaring, but it healed within a couple weeks just being in Colombia. So that says a lot in terms of a better environment for me where I actually feel a lot better being here. Work during that time slowed down a lot for me during the summer, which makes sense because I didn't have space for it, right? There was a wedding, there was moving, so it made a lot of sense. When you have a lot going on in your life, you're not gonna have space for the things that you want, right? So let's say you're someone that really wants healing and you want your skin to heal, you want your gut to heal, but you're so consumed by your work or you're consumed by your relationships, energetically, your body does not have space for you to heal. That's something you might want to think about. Hearing my story, I didn't have space in my business because I had to focus on my mental health. I had to focus on healing myself before I can attract more clients. Last quarter of the year, September to December of 2024. By this quarter, I'm feeling so much better. I'm now around people that are supportive. I'm with my best friend and I'm working on myself all the time. And I'm just in a better place. Obviously, not perfect because healing your traumas, healing from business trauma doesn't just happen overnight. I took some time off of social media, as you guys saw when I tuned out during Christmas holidays. I also took a little bit of a break in October. And then my skin cleared completely, started feeling better, expressed my vulnerability for the first time on social media during this quarter. I think it was October or November when I shared that, and continuing to share that because I think everyone needs to know that whatever you're going through, you're not growing through it alone. I really believe in like the energies, and I'm into spirituality and astrology and things like that. And people feel things in a collective, and I'm not the only one going through the things I'm going through. My clients have reached out to me, other people that are going through it with their business. It's nothing bad about sharing the sides of you that people can relate to because we're all humans at the end of the day and we connect through experiences. And so this is why you're seeing me post more about these things, what I eat and what I'm doing, how I'm feeling. The new era is going to be about authenticity and vulnerability. Basically, not much happened much in September, December, despite just feeling better. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention, I launched my new membership, the Gut Brain Skin Restoration Club. So I launched that in October and I have the best clients. I'm so grateful to have these clients inside Gut Brain Skin Restoration Club. And then as for CYE, I transitioned all of my group clients into one-on-one clients because a lot of them just needed more of that one-on-one support. So CYE is still there, still my signature program. All of my clients are currently one-on-one. And then I have my Gut Brain Skin Restoration Club, which is my group membership. You can also do one-on-one as well. And been loving the new membership and my new clients and just feeling connected to my work again. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm really excited for 2025 this year. Okay. That is basically an overview of 2024. Things are getting better. Now we're going to talk a little bit about lessons. I shared a little bit of like lessons of 2024, but here are my notes. I learned that there will always be ups and downs when it comes to business, and that's okay. There are moments when things are difficult. You have client complaints, you're not making money, you're feeling like you're not doing enough. But those are the moments when I learned the most. I would have learned nothing if everything was going well. If I was making money, if I know client complaints, perfect, I would learn nothing. But this year has taught me to learn more about myself, working on my self-worth, and understanding more about what I actually want to do moving forward. I wouldn't have known these things if I didn't invest back into myself and if I didn't go through these things. So every time you go through something hard, it's where you learn the most. Even though in the moment when you feel like you don't even want this to happen, you'll look back in retrospect and be like, okay, that was meant to happen for a reason. Let me take something out of that. Another lesson I learned is health is more important than having enough money. The times that I was flaring during the summer, I wished more than anything else to have clear skin again. Because of my childhood of coming from a family where everything was about money, I had to be successful, I had to become a doctor. Everything was about status, right? And coming from a city like Vancouver where everything is about status, I started to tie my self-worth with money. Still working on it, but now I'm trying to not think about that as much and focus more on myself and my mindset because your internal reality is going to reflect your external, right? So if you don't feel good about yourself and you lack self-worth or you lack self-confidence, you're not going to attract the things that you want in life. You're not going to have a good relationship. You're not going to have the money that you want. You're not going to be able to have the career that you want because your internal reality is a mirror of your external. So it doesn't matter how hard you work. And with like the hustle culture nowadays, a lot of the masculine type of people, men will be like, work, 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 or work. That's how you're going to make money. Just grind, and that's what it is, right? And yes, of course, you have to work hard in order to succeed. But if it's at the extent of your health and you are burning out and you feel shitty about yourself, you can work a million hours and not get the results that you want if you don't heal yourself first. So that is something I learned about because I actually started seeing more results when I started to do more of the inner child healing, emotional healing, and less doing and more being the person that I actually see myself being, who is feeling confident, who doesn't tie her self-worth to money and like practices self-love and things like that. And that's how you attract more things into your life, right? So that's something I really learned about is working more and working harder does not equal more success. Yes, you need to work hard, but whatever you're working hard for, you need to put that same amount of effort into your mental health and not just like, I'm going to tell myself I'm good today. Like doing the inner child healing, because a lot of our problems come from your inner child. Learned that from my therapist. Okay, what else? Oh, I literally just covered my notes. Working more does not equal more success. Yes. Social media is low-key traumatizing. LMAO. Yes. Everyone is posting their highlight reels. Everyone's telling you how great they're doing. Imposter syndrome is real. Comparison is real. And so taking time off of social media is critical. And something that I really struggled with during my trip in Spain was being offline. It was very, very hard for me. I was so afraid that I was going to be irrelevant. I was so afraid that people would stop caring. I was so afraid that I would come back and nobody would care. All of that is just like in my head. And it's like my feelings of not enough again. So that's something I learned in my Spain trip, being away, is that if I'm just confident and just knowing that I am who I am and people are going to work with me just being me, then I'm not going to care what's on social media. I'm not going to care about what other people are doing. If something isn't working clearly, you need to pivot, even if the pivot seems impossible and scary. That's something I learned with my business. Things weren't working anymore. I had to pivot, shift my practice away from just focusing on eczema and start focusing on other areas. I felt that my worth was defined by my business. This is the big one. If I didn't post enough, if I didn't make enough money, if I didn't get enough comments, if I didn't gain enough followers, I just felt like I'm nothing, which is a very cruel thing to even think about myself, right? So now I'm redefining my business as nothing to do with how hard I work. It's more about what I believe in myself and not tying my worth to vanity metrics. Very key. My therapist, Lisa, mentioned that the way that I am is because of how I was raised. Growing up in a scarcity mindset household, money was always a problem. We were forced to be successful. There's a lot of betrayal and abuse. Of course, it's going to show up in my adulthood. And then, entering 2025, what my predictions are in terms of health, healing, self-growth. I think this is the year where I'm going to be showing up as me and not being afraid of being me and posting videos of like what I eat and what I'm doing, because I haven't really done that before, because I've always been scared that people would be like, we don't care about that. Tell me how to heal my skin. But fuck that. I'm going to just post what I want to post. Obviously, I'm still going to be relatable and try to help you guys with your skin. But this year for me, I really want to be more authentic, more vulnerable, focus on healing my relationship with myself, healing my relationship with money, healing my inner child, listening to my body more, nourishing my body in the way where it's beyond just the foods that I eat and the supplements that I take, and nourishing in a way where it's love. Self-love. And then lastly, restructuring my business in a way that resonates with who I am. I'm not going to just pump out content just for the sake of growing on social media or just for the sake of helping people. I want to create content that resonates with me, that feels good when I post it. There are times last year when I would be like, I don't want to post this, but I'm going to post it because I think it's going to be helpful for someone. But the moment that I felt like I don't want to do something, I should just not do it. Now it's like I only post content where I'm like, okay, I feel good about this. Like I want to post my day in the life. I want to post what I made for dinner the other day. I made the viral Turkish pasta the other day and I created a video of me making it. And so I'm excited to post those things. I think that basically covers a year in review and what I'm expecting for 2025. I'm so sorry this was such a long episode. There was just so much to share, and a year is a long time of everything that has happened last year. Anyways, thank you so much for being here. I love you guys so much. If this resonated with you, please screenshot, share this to me, send me an email, DM me on Instagram and let me know. I'm really looking forward to 2025. I have a feeling that it's going to be a good year. for all of us. It's time for change. 2024 was a hard year for a lot of you, and for me too, mentally, emotionally, business wise. But I always say when you're going through hardships, there's always something beautiful that is on its way. And I think 2025 might be the year for that. Love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. And we're back to weekly episodes. Bye, guys.